The letter was taped to my barn door with bright blue painter's tape, like they were trying to make a threat look polite. It said my machine shed violated the new HOA setback line and had to be moved back 50 feet within 10 days. If I refused, the association would correct the issue and bill me for the removal. I read it twice while the wind pushed dust across the yard. Then I looked past my field to the row of expensive houses they'd built where my grandfather used to cut hay. Those people had never liked the sight of my shed, my tractor, or the rusted grain wagon near the fence. To them, my land was a problem they had to erase. What they didn't know was that the gravel lane running along the side of my property, the same lane they use for construction trucks and landscaping crews, sat on an access easement my grandfather recorded 43 years ago. They thought they could force me back because they believe they control the road. But that road was the one thing they never should have touched, and by the time they figured that out, they had already handed me everything I needed to bury them in their own paperwork. I didn't call a lawyer first. I called my Aunt Ruth, because family remembers what paper forgets. She told me my grandfather fought the county in 1981 to keep permanent access to the back acreage after they widened the road. She said the original survey map was probably still in the steel flat file in the old workshop, underneath decades of seed catalogs, tax envelopes, and faded equipment manuals. I spent half the afternoon digging through dust and mouse-chewed folders before I found a rolled map wrapped in butcher paper and tied with cracked twine. When I opened it on the hood of my truck, I saw the easement line in red pencil running straight through the exact lane the HOA now claimed as their private buffer strip. The next morning, I drove to the county clerk's office, where an older clerk named Jensen squinted at the map, disappeared into the archive room, and came back with a certified plat book copy and a transfer record. That's when the story changed. My shed wasn't inside their setback. Their decorative stone entry, 2 mail kiosks, and part of their landscaping island were sitting on top of my legal access corridor. I sent the HOA president a copy of the plat with one sentence attached. "You are enforcing restrictions on land you do not control." She answered the same afternoon with a 3-paragraph email full of bold letters, policy language, and the kind of confidence people borrow when they think money makes them right. 2 days later, orange stakes appeared beside my lane. A survey crew hired by the association started marking a new line that would cut directly across my tractor access. I walked out with my map tube under one arm and asked the foreman who authorized the work. He pointed to a black SUV near the mailbox island where the HOA president stood in pressed white slacks and sunglasses, like she was unveiling a monument. I told the crew to stop. She smiled and said I was standing in a common area, and that if I interfered, she'd have me removed. That was the moment I knew they still hadn't checked the county record. So I stopped arguing, photographed every stake they drove, every spray-painted arrow they left in the gravel, and every inch of the stone entry they had built inside my easement. If they wanted to fight, I was done warning them how badly they had misread the ground beneath their feet. The real collision came the following Friday, just after sunrise. I heard diesel engines before I poured my coffee, and when I stepped onto the porch, 2 contractors were unloading concrete forms near the lane entrance. The HOA had decided to make their claim permanent before I could stop them. They were about to pour curbing and set boulders across the corridor my deed protected. I let them work for 12 minutes. Long enough to position equipment, long enough to commit to the mistake, long enough that backing out would cost them money. Then the county engineer's truck rolled in behind the sheriff's cruiser, followed by Jensen from the clerk's office with a folder on his lap and a licensed surveyor carrying fresh field notes. The foreman shut off his machine first. The HOA president stepped out of her SUV, still talking before the engineer cut her off and asked one question: who authorized construction inside a recorded private easement? Nobody answered. The surveyor walked the line, set his tripod, and confirmed every measurement in front of all of them. The boulders, the stone sign, the mailbox pad, even part of their fancy irrigation trench were inside my corridor. By 8:14 that morning, the sheriff had ordered the site frozen, and the woman who tried to move my shed was standing on my access lane without permission. They never touched my shed again. Within a week, the association's attorney sent a settlement letter so careful and polite It barely sounded like it came from the same people who threatened to remove my building. They agreed to pull every obstruction out of the easement, restore the gravel lane, reimburse my survey costs, and revise their community map to show the corridor exactly as recorded. The county made them remove the stonework and shift the mailbox cluster back behind their true line. For 3 straight days, I watched crews undo what arrogance had built in 6 months. The best part wasn't the settlement money or the apology buried in legal language. It was the silence after the last truck left. No more notices on my barn. No more people measuring land they didn't understand. Just wind in the grass, the old shed standing where it had always stood, and a lane my grandfather fought to protect, still cutting clean through the edge of the subdivision. They thought I was the last stubborn man on an outdated piece of land. What they learned too late was that old property lines don't care about new opinions, and sometimes the fastest way to lose a fight is to start one on ground that already belongs to someone else.